Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of the Airfix Hellcat build, scale 1 to 24. In part 1 I started with the cockpit. In this part I'll be finishing off the cockpit. So let's jump into this. So we're going to start in the chair. There's various parts. I've already painted the base colour of the green, but the seat is Rebel Aquila 45 Light Olive, and that's just for the seat. Next is the seat belts, and these are painted in Rebel Aquila 314 Beige. Now the seat belts are come in 4 different parts, but there's also moulding on the actual seat itself that you have to paint in. There's some handles you have to paint, and these are getting painted in Rebel Aquila 09 Anthracite, and it's just the tips of these. Camera doesn't really pick it up too well, but it's the part goes beside the seat in the cockpit. It's like a brake. When I say a brake, they look like a handbrake lever, but what the actual part is, I'm not too sure. But I'll try and bring up to the camera for you to have a look, but it doesn't work out too well. Back to the seat belts, and now the MIMS paint dries to the buckles, and these are getting painted in Rebel Aquila 90 Silver. There's various little buckles you have to paint here. They are quite small. Before we can carry on with the seat, there is a couple of decals that have to go on to the actual seat itself. So I'll just zoom in a bit and maybe you can see them a bit better. Now, these decals are just a series of numbers. I don't think the camera's going to pick them up all that well. They're very small, as you can imagine. After putting them on, they were tricky to put on, but after putting them on and placing in the rest of the harnesses or seat belts, you really couldn't make them out that well. So I don't actually think it's necessary to place them on, unless you want to be a completist and put them on, and of course feel free to do so. I put them on just to see whether I can see them, and you can make out maybe one or two, but once the unit's closed up, I don't think you'll be able to see any of them at all, not with any clear aspect to what they are anyway. So it's up to the builder really, if they want to place them on. But there's a series of 5 that go on the seat alone. On the seatbelt or harness, I decided to paint in Rebel Aquila 84 Leather Brown on some of the markings, just to give it a bit of contrast colour. So think of your leather straps holding parts of the buckle on the harness. I have no idea if that's the correct thing to do, but I just thought it looked a little bit better. It gave the plastic harness more definition. So now to the actual construction of the seat. There's a couple of parts go to it. Obviously the back part goes on first to the main bottom part. You shouldn't have any problems here. It just fits in nice. As you said, it just went right in without any issues. The sides of the seat, or the side walls, again, didn't have any problems, but I would recommend making sure you get all the boards from the contact points where it's made a contact with the sprue all levelled off. That way you won't have any gaps. I had a tiny little bit of plastic I didn't notice left on. I didn't smooth it down properly enough, and when I put it on there was a minuscule gap, but it did throw off the whole side part of the seat. So you want to make sure that's completely clear of any burrs or build up of plastic before you put it on. Then once the sides are on, all you do then is pop in the actual seat. Next is the buckle as well, the harness. Next, these could be a bit confusing when you're putting them on, just because of the shape of them. But basically, the longer part tends to go over the seat, and the connection point to it is right in the corner. There is a little recess point where you can just lay it on. All you need is a tiny bit of cement to secure these. I would suggest securing the side first, and don't really worry about putting any cement on the actual opposite tip of the seat belt. So when it's resting on the seat itself, it's not going to deteriorate your paintwork. So as you can see, I'm just moving the tips into position, the end parts where the buckles are. I don't think there's any right way or wrong way for the positioning. Next is the back support of the chair. Now this is the part that will actually be getting secured onto the bulkhead. There's a little shelf there that you can see that actually goes on underneath the seat. So that's your connection point there. Initially I thought that sat at the back of the seat and sticked out, but it doesn't. It goes underneath it. Sorry, it's off camera there because I had to get up close to see where I was putting it. But after dry fitting it, I figured out where it had to go. And so it just lays under the bottom like that, and you shouldn't then have any problems when you fit it against the bulkhead. So fitting it is fairly straightforward. It goes into the support beams on the floor that I put in originally, and the two parts that were in the end, it has a little semicircle curve inside the support beam, and that's where the legs rest into. This is why it was important to put these support beams in the correct order when I was building the floor. Then the top just sits in its bracket just below the headrest, directly in line with where the harness holder is actually kept. So it's all under, well, it's behind the seat bit, a little bit on top. So then the top part of the harness goes onto those connectors, onto the bar that just runs on the top there. Again, it was quite easy to do. The instructions say dry fit these beforehand. Most modelers know that's what we do anyway. We always dry fit before we apply the cement. But it was not a problem. I didn't know whether to have them going down into a cross or going down straight. I decided to go down into a cross and come to a point onto the bottom seat. That's generally how I do them when I'm making my own seat belts. So I just went with what I know. Next to go in is the little brake or lever thing that I painted with the tips of the black paint. Yeah, you can see just make up the bracket where it's going to go. It just slots right in. I wasn't sure of the position, whether it should be straight or on an angle, so I left it on an angle just because I thought it looked better. So these next parts are little brackets or support beams that fit onto the cradle of the cockpit. Then they butt up against the fuselage. Now I took them all off the sprue and got them ready to go on. I didn't realise, because I was working too fast, I didn't pay attention to what I was doing, that each one is actually numbered individually. So and they all go in a specific order. So it took a little bit of time to figure out which one went where, because I completely missed that. So don't do what I did. Pay attention to the instructions always. If you are going to take them off all in one go, put them in order of doing them. So now it's painting the fuselage with Tamiya's F6F-5 Cockpit green. Now the instructions will say paint all the fuselage, the inside, and depending on how you're going to display it is how much you're going to paint. I haven't made up my mind yet at this point. So now I'm going on to the other side wall and control system, and I'm using Cradle Color 09 Anthracite, and this is just for some of the control boxes that are on the side panel there. Now it's entirely up to the user, but you can also colour in the dials with little spots of colour if you wish. I've done a couple of bits, but nothing major. So these actually do require decals as well. Make sure you have a look at the instructions sheet, because all it tells you on there is refer to page 72 for position of the decals. Now you can miss that out if you're just building away and looking for the decal symbol, as they've actually just written it in. And I know that the back of the page is where all the decal placements are for the interior as well as the exterior. So it's worth checking out. So those are the decals on. We'll just hold it up a little bit. Camera's trying to get into focus. Yeah, it's not brilliant the focus there, but they are small and there's quite a few of them. This decal was quite difficult to put on that I'm trying to show on the camera here. It's a little semicircle, half circle decal that puts on over the actual switch. It was extremely difficult, but I did manage it. So now it's time to place these parts on. This little part just gets slotted in a support beam down near the bottom of the unit that I'm doing here. Again, you'll need a good pair of tweezers here, and of course a steady hand. Make sure everything's dry before you do this as well. You don't want to be scratching your decals or your paintwork when you're putting this on. But it should just push in at the bottom there. The instructions are quite clear, but you can easily get distracted and put it in the wrong place. As in, I almost put it in a higher position than it was meant to go, and that's quite crucial for when you put it on the sidewall of the fuselage and put in the cockpit cradle. It won't fit otherwise, so you do have to be careful. So next is the other. It's such a tiny part. It's just some little levers and that go onto the sidewall. They're very small, but they do fit on quite nicely. Again, make sure that all the burrs and brays are off it, because it will not fit otherwise. And you'll have to let each part dry before you put each part on. But as you can see, it's quite delicate work, but it does look nice once it's all completed. So I'll just hold it up a little bit more for you. Yeah, that looks okay. Now I'm just drilling some holes here. The instructions say drill them at this point. This all depends on what weapons you're putting on. So refer to the instructions and decide which system you're having. If you can't use your pin drill, your knife, hobby knife should just be able to open them up slightly. So now it's time to put on the sidewall. It fits in beautifully. There was no issues whatsoever. A little bit of cement along the line on the fuselage, and it just popped in. This little bar at the top I did have difficulties with, and just because it's so thin and it bends easily, and it has to go right at the top of the cockpit. Be careful with it and make sure it's dry before you put in the cockpit cradle, and try and get it lined flat. It has very few contact points, so it is difficult. There's a couple of levers to make up, but the head is painted in 09 Alphazite Black by Rebel Aquacolor. Now the instructions say to these, once you make them up and place in the cradle, then you place these two parts in. After having a look at it, I decided to place them in the cradle first, where it contacts the cradle. There's two contact points, one for the sidewall and one on the cradle. If you put the cradle in first before putting these parts in, you'll find it extremely difficult for them to fit. So hence why it's easier to put them in now. So, and on the one that goes on the sidewall, this is just a little switch thing that sits on the bracket, and when it goes in, make sure it sits on an angle that goes down diagonally. You have to make sure it goes that way, or it won't fit and you'll end up snapping it off. So just be careful of the position when you do it, but you can see this little angle there, and that's what you're looking for. So now I'm going to be fitting the cradle into the fuselage. It's not a problem, it just slots right in. Remember, I test fitted it prior to with what the instructions said, to use it as a guide. So I'm going to leave the closed part to here, So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the other videos for this build, or indeed check the channel out. There may be something there that interests you. Subscribe to the channel and you'll get all the updates that are going to be for this build. There will be a few of them. Hit that like button, and of course you can leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.